After 7 years of dating, Julia still turned down my proposal. That very night, I received a notification that she was getting engaged to my childhood friend, Marcus. I didn't call to demand an explanation. I didn't scream. I simply gathered everything that reminded me of her and threw it in the dumpster. On the day of Julia's engagement party, she sent me a text. "Where are you? Why aren't you here yet?" I let out a bitter laugh and blocked her on everything. She had no idea that 2 weeks ago, I had accepted a proposal from a high society heiress from the Manhattan elite. I was heading to New York to marry her. I turned off my phone and took a long, deep breath. Ethan, we're still young. It's way too early to talk about marriage. Julia had been focused on her freshly manicured nails, refusing to meet my eyes. My hand, still holding the velvet ring box, froze in midair. The elegant violin music playing in the background of the restaurant suddenly sounded like nails on a chalkboard. 7 years. From college until now, 7 long years. I thought the only thing left between us was the distance of this one ring. I pulled my hand back, shoved the box into my pocket, and felt my throat go dry. "So what are you saying?" "Let's just wait," she said, finally looking up. There was a flicker of something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. A complex, shadowed emotion. "Let's wait until our careers are stable." Stable? For her sake, because she didn't like long distance, I had turned down an offer from a top-tier architectural firm in Chicago. I stayed in this mid-sized city, working in a mediocre company, just to be near her. To buy her the designer bag she craved, I had sold my independent design drafts over and over again, living like a monk for 6 months just so she could post a perfect picture on Instagram. For the past 7 years, my career had been as stable as a stagnant pond, all for the sake of her so-called security. I looked at her and realized she felt like a stranger. "Fine, I understand." I nodded, not saying another word. We finished the meal in a stifling silence. On the drive back, I kept my eyes on the road while she scrolled through her phone in the passenger seat, just like any other day. Then, a notification popped up on the dashboard screen. An Instagram post from my old friend, Marcus Thorne. The photo showed a man and a woman holding hands. The background was the very restaurant where I had just proposed. The woman's wrist featured a very expensive bracelet, the one I had given Julia for her birthday. The caption read, "To the rest of our lives, at Julia Sterling." Below it, in smaller text, "Save the date. Next month on the 18th. Drinks and celebration to follow." My hand jerked on the wheel, and the tires screeched as I slammed on the brakes by the curb. Julia gasped, nearly dropping her phone. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing?" I didn't look at her. I just stared at the screen. The blood rushed to my head for a split second before turning to ice. So it wasn't that it was too early to get married. It was just that the person she wanted to marry wasn't me. It wasn't that our careers weren't stable. It was that my career couldn't give her the life she wanted. Marcus's family owned half the real estate in the county. How could a guy who just draws blueprints compete with that? I suddenly started laughing. It hurt my chest to breathe. "Nothing," I said, my voice terrifyingly calm as I restarted the car. "Just a slip of the hand." She gave me a suspicious look, but didn't push it. She went back to her phone, likely busy replying to the flood of congratulations on her secret post. She hadn't even bothered to hide it from me. Or perhaps, in her mind, I wasn't even worth the effort of a cover-up. I pulled up to her apartment. She unbuckled her seatbelt to get out. "It's my mom's birthday tomorrow. Remember to come over early," she said, her tone so natural it was as if nothing had happened. I looked at her profile. 7 years hadn't left many marks on her face, but they had left deep scars on my heart. "I can't," I said, my voice hoarse. "I have something to do tomorrow." She blinked, looking annoyed. "What could be more important than my mom's birthday?" "Something very important," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "I'm going to get married." Julia's expression froze. She looked at me like I had just told a hilarious, impossible joke. "Ethan, did the rejection go to your head? That's not even a good joke." I didn't respond. I rolled up the window and hit the gas, leaving her bewildered face behind in the rearview mirror. When I got back to the place we used to call home, a place I had designed every inch of and furnished piece by piece, it felt like a mockery. Our photos were still on the wall, showing her smiling and leaning into me. With a blank expression, I took down the frames. I grabbed several heavy-duty black trash bags and began packing everything that belonged to her. Her clothes, her makeup, her favorite plushies. I left nothing. Finally, I pulled the velvet ring box from my pocket and, without a moment's hesitation, tossed it in. I dragged the heavy bags down to the building's dumpster and heaved them in. As the lid slammed shut, I buried 7 years of my life. I pulled out my phone. Her number, still pinned to the top of my contacts, felt like an eyesore. I held it down and hit delete. WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook. I blocked and deleted her on every platform I had. I didn't need a confrontation. I didn't need an argument. Betrayal was the only answer I required. Once it was done, I leaned against the wall of my empty living room and lit a cigarette. Through the smoke, I remember an afternoon 2 weeks ago. I had been visiting a renowned veteran in the industry to discuss a design proposal. After the meeting, while waiting for my Uber in the lobby cafe, a woman had walked straight up to me and sat down. She wore a perfectly tailored power suit, her aura sharp and professional, her features stunning. "Mr. Ethan Miller," she asked, her voice cool and composed. I was surprised. "And you are?" "Isabella Vance." She handed me a business card. It was simple, just her name and a number, but the cardstock and minimalist design screamed old money sophistication. "I've been watching you for a while," she said, cutting straight to the point. "From your senior thesis in college to the freelance drafts you've been selling lately. You're talented, Ethan, but your talent is being wasted." I frowned, wondering what her angle was. "Your girlfriend, Julia, isn't right for you." Isabella's tone was flat, but her words were like a stone dropped into a still lake. My first instinct was anger. "Ma'am, I don't know you, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't comment on my private life." She smiled, a look of understanding. "And was that pity? I'm not trying to cause drama. I'm stating a fact." She leaned forward, her sharp eyes locking onto mine. "I have a proposal, or rather, an opportunity for both of us. I need a husband, a legal partner to keep the board of directors and the traditionalists in my family off my back, so I can take over the Vance Group smoothly. And you? You need a platform, a place where you can use your talent without selling your soul or your blueprints to fund a woman's vanity." She paused, dropping the final bombshell. "Marry me. I'll give you everything you want. You play the role of my husband for 1 year. After that, we go our separate ways, and I'll give you a settlement large enough to ensure you never have to work a day in your life again." At the time, I thought she was insane. "I have a girlfriend. We're happy." I stood up to leave. "Are you?" Isabella leaned back, watching me calmly. "The girlfriend who let you give up a Chicago offer so she could carry designer bags bought with your sleepless nights? The girlfriend who says she loves you while spending nights at 5-star hotels with your best friend, Marcus Thorne?" I froze in my tracks. "You investigated me?" My voice was cold. "Due diligence is necessary before any merger," Isabella said, taking a sip of her coffee. I had to make sure my partner was in a position to collaborate. She slid a few photos across the table. They showed Julia and Marcus looking intimate, entering hotels and laughing together in luxury boutiques. Each one was a knife to the heart. Back then, I chose not to believe it. Or rather, I was too afraid to believe it. I grabbed the photos and practically ran away. Thinking back now, I was pathetic. Isabella had given me the truth, and I had chosen to be an ostrich with my head in the sand. The cigarette burnt down to my fingers, snapping me back to reality. I crushed the butt in the ashtray. My phone buzzed. A new text message from Isabella Vance. "Have you made up your mind?" I stared at those words, took a deep breath, and dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. "Hello." That same cool voice answered. "I accept," I said. There was a brief silence on the other end, followed by a soft, light laugh. "A wise choice. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Bring your ID and your social security card to the private terminal at the airport. My jet will be waiting." "Where are we going?" "New York," Isabella said, her tone brooking no argument. "My territory, our new beginning." As I hung up and looked around the empty apartment, I felt a sense of liberation for the first time. Goodbye, Julia. Goodbye to those dead 7 years. The next morning, I ignored the dozens of missed calls from Julia's mother. I carried only a single suitcase containing a few changes of clothes and all my design sketches. When I arrived at the private terminal, Isabella was already there. She was wearing a beige trench coat today, her long hair draped over her shoulders. When she saw me, she gave a slight nod. "You're here." "Yeah." Without any unnecessary small talk, we boarded the plane. The luxurious interior and the attentive service made it feel like a dream. As the plane took off smoothly, I watched the city shrink below us, a whirlwind of emotions in my chest. Just then, my phone buzzed again. It was a message on WhatsApp. Oh, wait, I had blocked her there. It was a friend request via my phone number. I hit decline. Seconds later, a text message arrived. "Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you? You skipped my mom's birthday, you're not answering your phone, and you blocked me? Are you trying to break up or something?" I looked at the message, feeling nothing but irony. She didn't even realize we were already over. I didn't reply. As the plane reached cruising altitude, a flight attendant brought over champagne. Isabella raised her glass to me. "To our partnership." I picked up my glass and clinked it against hers. "To our partnership," The bubbles rose in the glass, mirroring my restless state of mind. I thought that would be the end of it. Until 2 weeks later, the day of Marcus and Julia's engagement party. That day, Isabella and I were at City Hall, having just signed our marriage license. Holding the official document in my hand, it still felt surreal. Isabella looked at me, a ghost of a smile on her lips. Well, Mr. Miller, I look forward to working with you. Likewise, Mrs. Vance, I said, stumbling slightly over the new title. She seemed satisfied with the name. She pulled out her phone. Let's go. It's time to meet my grandfather and officially announce our good news. Just as I was about to turn off my phone, a text message popped up. It was Julia. Where are you? Why aren't you here yet? Marcus has so many friends here who want to meet you. The text made my blood boil. Want to meet me? They wanted to see the discarded ex-boyfriend, the stray dog they left behind. They wanted to gloat about her correct choice right in my face. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't catch my breath. Isabella noticed my reaction, her gaze falling on my screen. She didn't say anything. She just watched me. Suddenly, I felt centered. I picked up the phone. I didn't reply. Instead, right in front of Isabella, I added Julia's number to my permanent block list. Let's go, I said to Isabella. We shouldn't keep your grandfather waiting. She studied me for a few seconds, then nodded and turned toward the black Rolls-Royce waiting at the curb. I got in and shut off the phone, cutting off the past entirely. The sky outside was a brilliant blue, the sky over New York. Julia would never know that while she was enjoying her engagement party with my friend, I was stepping into a brand new life that actually belonged to me. The Vance estate was located on a prestigious hillside overlooking the Hudson, a sprawling manor that combined classic architecture with modern security. It screamed power. Arthur Vance, Isabella's grandfather, was the patriarch of the family. He sat in a high-backed leather chair, rolling a pair of silver stress balls in his hand, looking every bit the formidable titan. So this is the one you chose? The old man lifted his eyes, his sharp, intelligent gaze sweeping over me. Yes, grandfather. This is Ethan, my husband. Isabella stood beside me, her voice steady and respectful. I could feel several other hostile gazes in the room. Likely Isabella's relatives, waiting for her to fail. An architect from a mid-sized firm in the South. A snide voice rang out. It was Harrison Vance, Isabella's cousin. Isabella, your taste is getting unique. Isabella ignored him, keeping her eyes on her grandfather. Grandfather, I need a partner I can trust, not a wolf looking to tear apart the family legacy. Her words were pointed. Arthur remained silent for a moment, the silver balls clicking together. You choose your own marriage. But a Vance son-in-law cannot be a useless freeloader. He turned to me. Young man, how do you plan to prove you are worthy of my granddaughter? Isabella and I had rehearsed this on the way over. I stepped forward, confident but not arrogant. Mr. Vance, I'm not here to offer empty words. I've reviewed the files on the mist-covered Marshlands Resort project, the one the group shelved years ago. It failed because the design was completely disconnected from the local landscape. Give it to me. In 3 months, I will give you a revolutionary new proposal. If I fail, I will walk away from this marriage with nothing. The room went silent. Harrison burst into a mocking laugh. A kid like you? That project was a disaster that even international firms couldn't fix. What makes you think you can? Because I understand the soul of the land better than they do, I said, looking straight at Arthur. The old man squinted at me for a long time, long enough for my palms to start sweating. Fine, he finally said. I'll give you 3 months. Let's see what you're made of. As we left the estate and got back into the car, I finally let out a breath. My back was soaked with sweat. Isabella handed me a bottle of water. Good performance. You have guts. It was the guts you gave me, I admitted with a wry smile. If she hadn't given me all the files on that project and let me pull 3 all-nighters studying them, I never would have dared to make that bet. I only provided the information. You were the one who convinced them, Isabella said, looking out the window. Ethan, remember, we are partners. I need you to stand tall. Your success is my success. I nodded. Over the next few weeks, I buried myself in the project. Isabella gave me full authority, creating an independent task force and shifting all necessary resources to me. I practically lived at the office, sleeping only 3 or 4 hours a night. During the day, I was on site doing surveys. At night, I was at my drafting table until dawn. My interactions with Isabella were strictly professional. We were like 2 soldiers fighting toward a common goal. This sense of pure, focused collaboration made me almost forget the past. It was Marcus. He looked more haggard than I remembered. His suit was wrinkled, and his hair was a mess. Ethan, he said, his eyes filled with a complicated mix of emotions. I frowned. What are you doing here? I came to find you. He stepped forward, his voice raspy. Julia, she's been looking for you. She's going crazy. And I didn't look up from my blueprints, my voice cold. Why didn't you come to the engagement party? Why did you block everyone? He demanded. Are we even friends anymore? I looked up at him as if he were an idiot. Friends. I laughed. A man who steals his friend's woman doesn't get to use that word. Marcus's face flushed. Julia and I are in love. She was never happy with you. Then I wish you both a long and happy life together. I picked up another file. Now get out. I am Busse. Ethan. He slammed his hand down on my blueprints. Don't get cocky. You think you're a big shot just because you're in New York. My father already has a deal in the works with one of the vice presidents at the Vance Group. You cross me, and you're finished. A vice president? Harrison Vance's smug face flashed through my mind. So that was it. Just then the office door opened. Isabella walked in. She saw Marcus, and her brows furrowed. Who is this? Nobody important, I said. Marcus stared at Isabella, his eyes wide. He clearly knew who she was. In these circles, no one failed to recognize the crown princess of the Vance Group. Ms. Vance, he stammered, his bravado vanishing instantly. Isabella didn't even look at him. She walked over to me and naturally adjusted my slightly messy collar. Grandfather wants us to have dinner at the house tonight, she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Then, she acted as if she had just noticed Marcus. She tilted her head. Sir, you were saying something about your father having a deal with one of our VPs? Marcus broke into a cold sweat. It's with Harrison Vance. Oh, Harrison. Isabella lingered on the name, then pulled out her phone and made a call. Assistant Wong, send out memo. As of today, Harrison Vance is suspended from all duties within the group. Also, terminate all negotiations with Thorn Real Estate. Furthermore, no Vance-owned subsidiary is to ever do business with the Thorns again. The person on the other end complied immediately. Marcus's face went paper white. Ms. Vance, you can't do this. Marcus panicked, lunging forward as if to grab Isabella's hand. I stepped in immediately, blocking his path. On what grounds? Because of him? Because of his pretty boy? Marcus pointed at me, his voice cracking. Isabella's eyes turned glacial. On what grounds? She sneered. On the grounds that I am the future CEO of this company, and on the grounds that he is my husband. Is that enough of a reason? Husband. The word hit Marcus like a physical blow. He looked at me, then at Isabella, his mouth hanging open, unable to utter a single syllable. Get out, Isabella said simply. Marcus stumbled out of the office like a man who had lost his soul. The room returned to silence. Thank you, I said quietly. I told you we're partners. Your problems are my problems. Isabella walked over to my desk, looking at the piles of sketches. How's the progress? The preliminary draft is finished. I pulled up the final rendering on the monitor. It was a design that blended the serenity of a nature retreat with cutting-edge modern aesthetics, preserving the local ecosystem while integrating smart technology and sustainable luxury. Isabella stared at the screen, her eyes sparkling. It's beautiful, she whispered. Better than I imagined. Her praise made all the exhaustion of the past few weeks vanish. This is just the start, I said. I believe this will be the Vance Group's new flagship. I believe in you. Isabella turned to me, her gaze intense. Ethan, you really haven't let me down. In that moment, the gap between us seemed to shrink. It wasn't just a business arrangement anymore. There was a spark of genuine trust. The mist-covered marshlands project moved forward under my lead. Meanwhile, Marcus and Julia's world began to crumble. Because the Vance Group blacklisted Thorn Real Estate, Marcus's father's company faced a massive credit squeeze. Their stock plummeted, and they were soon on the verge of bankruptcy. Marcus's father was hospitalized from the stress, and the family fell from grace overnight. Marcus took all his anger out on Julia, blaming her for triggering me and causing his family's ruin. The true love they had boasted about was torn to shreds by the reality of their situation. Isabella's assistant would give me these updates occasionally. I listened with total indifference. These were their choices, and they had nothing to do with me. My world consisted of blueprints, models, and the project. 3 months later, I stood before the board of directors. When I finished the last slide of the presentation, the room was silent. Seconds later, Arthur Vance was the first to stand up, clapping loudly. Excellent. A masterpiece that respects the heritage while embracing the future. This is what the Vance Group stands for. Thunderous applause followed. Harrison Vance, who had been sneering at me from the sidelines, looked like he wanted to crawl into a hole. I knew then that I had won. I hadn't just earned respect for myself. I had given Isabella absolute authority over the group. After the meeting, Isabella opened a bottle of vintage red wine in her office. Congratulations, Ethan. As of today, you are a force to be reckoned with at the Vance Group. Congratulations to you too, I said. Soon, you won't need this husband of yours anymore. Our agreement was for a year. I had finished my task early, and she had seized control of the company. It seemed our collaboration could end ahead of schedule. Isabella's hand, swirling her wine glass, paused. She looked up at me, an unreadable emotion in her eyes. What if I said, I don't want it to end? I froze. What do you mean? Isabella set her glass down and walked over to me, looking me directly in the eye, that our partnership can continue, not as a legal contract, but as a real marriage. Her gaze was so honest, it made me lose my footing. Why? Because you're worth it, she said simply. You proved your value with your talent and hard work. You showed me that a man's true charm doesn't come from his family name, but from his character and ability. She paused, a self-deprecating smile touching her lips. And besides, I think I've gotten used to having you around. Used to it. The words sent a jolt through my heart. For the past 3 months, despite the work, we had lived under the same roof. I would be drafting late at night and find a warm glass of milk she'd left for me. When her gastritis flared up, she would find a simple porridge I'd clumsily made for her. We sat at the breakfast table every morning, discussing our work and sharing ideas. Slowly, these small moments had woven into the fabric of our lives. It was a comfortable way to live. No suspicion, no mind games, only mutual respect and support. It was the complete opposite of my 7 years with Julia. With Julia, I was always giving, always compromising. With Isabella, I felt seen and appreciated. I started, but the words wouldn't come. You don't have to answer right now, Isabella said kindly. The agreement is still in effect. Take your time. I'm just letting you know where I stand. She raised her glass again. To the success of the project. I clinked my glass against hers. This time, the wine tasted different. As the project broke ground, my reputation skyrocketed. The industry began calling me a prodigy architect. I wasn't just some guy selling drafts for grocery money or a trophy husband anymore. I was Ethan Miller. My name finally had its own weight. But at the height of my career, an uninvited guest appeared again. It was Julia. I had just returned from the construction site when I saw her standing outside my apartment building. She had lost a lot of weight and looked exhausted. She was wearing a faded old coat, a far cry from the luxury she used to demand. When she saw me, her eyes turned red instantly. Ethan, she ran toward me, trying to grab my hand, but I instinctively stepped back. Her hand hung awkwardly in the air. You finally agreed to see me. I've been looking for you for so long, Do you need something? I interrupted, my tone distant. Ethan, can we start over? She sobbed. I know I was wrong. I really know it now. Marcus and I broke up. He's a monster. Ever since his family lost everything, he takes it all out on me. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing dark bruises on her arm. I regret it, Ethan. My biggest regret is not saying yes to you that night. Can you forgive me? Let's go back to the way things were, back to our home. The home she spoke of was the apartment I had stripped of every memory. I looked at her and felt no anger, no pity, only a vast, cold stillness. Julia, I said, did you know? On the night I proposed, I saw your Instagram post with Marcus. Her crying stopped abruptly. Her face went pale. You don't need to say anything. I looked at her. From that moment on, we were over. Whether your life is good or bad now has nothing to do with me. No, it does, she cried, grabbing my arm. Ethan, you still love me, don't you? Why else would you come to New York and work this hard? You wanted to prove you were better than Marcus. You wanted to make me regret it. Well, I do. I'm back and we can. You're overthinking things. A cool, female voice came from behind me. Isabella was standing there. She walked up and naturally looped her arm through mine, looking at Julia with a regal, observant chill. He didn't work this hard to prove anything to you. He did it to be worthy of me. Julia's eyes locked onto Isabella's arm around mine. You too. Her lips trembled. I haven't introduced myself. Isabella smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. I am Ethan's wife, Isabella Vance. Wife. The word was like a slap to Julia's face. She swayed, nearly losing her balance. On the same day you got engaged to Marcus, I said calmly. Julia's eyes widened, and every last drop of color drained from her face. While she had thought I was just throwing a tantrum, waiting for her to come back, I had already started a new life. Her proud engagement party had been nothing more than the background noise to the start of my marriage. The sheer shock of that realization seemed to break her. No, that's impossible, she whispered. 7 years. How could you just let it go? You were the one who let go first, I said, my voice devoid of warmth. Julia, you taught me that some people aren't worth looking back for. Without another word, I put my hand on Isabella's shoulder and turned toward the building. Julia's heart-wrenching sobs echoed behind us, but I didn't turn around. In the elevator, Isabella let go of my arm and leaned against the wall, watching me. Satisfied? I shook my head. It's not about satisfaction. It just felt like watching a play that has nothing to do with me. Good, Isabella nodded. I don't want my husband dwelling in the mud of the past. I looked at her and suddenly asked, what you said out there, that I worked hard to be worthy of you. Was that true? Isabella blinked, a faint, rare blush creeping onto her ears. Half and half, she said, looking away. You were already excellent. You just needed a chance. The elevator dinged at our floor. As I pulled out my keys to open the door, I stopped. Isabella. She turned back. What you said before, about changing our partnership into a real marriage. Does that still stand? I felt my heart skip a beat. Isabella looked at me, a smile slowly spreading across her face like sunlight hitting a frozen lake. Of course it does, she said. But I have one condition. What's that? You are never allowed to cook again. She pointed toward the kitchen. That porridge you made last time gave me a stomachache for 2 days. I laughed. Looking at her smiling face, I felt the last of the shadows vanish. We had started with a transaction, but somehow we had found each other. Our lives settled into a beautiful rhythm. I focused on my career. After the success of the resort, I took on several international landmark projects. Isabella solidified her role as the CEO of the Vance Group, ruling with the same iron fist her grandfather once had. To the outside world, we were the ultimate power couple. To ourselves, we were partners and family. We argued over design concepts and held each other after long, exhausting days. Love grew in the quiet, daily moments of mutual respect. A year passed quickly. It was our first anniversary. Isabella stayed home from the office, and I took a rare day off. We didn't go to a fancy restaurant. Instead, I supervised the house staff as they prepared a massive feast at home. Ethan, Isabella said, raising her wine glass. Happy 1 year. Happy 1 year. I looked at her, overwhelmed by how much had changed. Time flies. It does. Isabella set her glass down and pulled a manila envelope from behind her, sliding it across the table. What's this? I asked, confused. The divorce papers, she said. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stared at the envelope. Everything went cold. The 1 year mark. She was serious. I thought we had moved past that. My throat felt tight, and I couldn't finish the sentence. Isabella watched me, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Open it. I took a shaky breath, reached out, and opened the envelope. Inside, there were no legal documents. There was a photo, an ultrasound, a tiny life curled up in the darkness. Below, it was a medical report. 8 weeks pregnant. I snapped my head up to look at her. She was resting her chin on her hand, beaming at me. Congratulations, Mr. Miller. You're going to be a father. A wave of pure, unadulterated joy crashed over me. I stood up, walked around the table, and pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm going to be a dad. My voice was shaking. Yeah, she whispered in my chest. So, are you going to sign those divorce papers? Never. Not in this lifetime. I held her even tighter, terrified this might be a dream. She laughed, patted my back. Okay, let go. You're squeezing the life out of me. I immediately let go and helped her sit down as if she were made of glass. I knelt beside her, pressing my ear to her stomach. It was still flat, but I felt like I could hear a tiny heartbeat. Isabella, I whispered, my eyes misty. Thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me when I was at my lowest. Thank you for showing me a wider world. Thank you for giving me a real home. She stroked my hair, her gaze tender enough to melt steel. Don't be silly. We're family. No thanks needed. I stayed by her side all night, too happy to sleep. Later, I heard from Assistant Wong that Thorn Real Estate had completely collapsed. Marcus had disappeared, fleeing from a mountain of debt. Julia, unable to handle the fall from high society to poverty, suffered a mental breakdown and was sent to a facility by her family. They say she carries a doll around, telling everyone it's her child, and that the father is a world-famous architect who's coming to take her home any day now. I only sighed when I heard the news. Everyone pays for their choices. I was just grateful for mine. A year later, Isabella gave birth to a beautiful daughter. We named her Annie. May her life be peaceful and full of joy. My career continued to soar, winning every major award in the field, but I turned down every unnecessary gala to spend time with my wife and daughter. Isabella eventually stepped back from the front lines of the company to focus on our family. Life is funny. Sometimes when one door closes, a window opens. And the view from that window is often more beautiful than anything you could have imagined. Story complete.